Hey there, Banditos. Welcome to this Friday episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits on this August 19th. I am Joe Marcello.
I am Mike Farah.
And our buddy Oren is still on vacation, but look, like we said, it's well-deserved. The guy works hard and he needs to play hard as well. Today, we're bringing you a great interview. We're talking to someone that you may be familiar with, his artwork on, X-Men, the Spectre, just to name a few. We're talking to Chris Wozniak. You may also be familiar with Chris lately in the news with some controversy as it pertains to his work on the Batman. So we definitely get into that. Great interview. Super cool guy to talk to.
Yeah, Chris has an interesting career. Coming up as an artist in DC primarily, but also, like Joe said, he did a little bit of work on the X book, specifically Excalibur. But, I think a lot of people that see his name today will think about what is now dubbed Batman Gate, where, Chris has claimed that the idea or the crux of the story for the Batman was based on a pitch he made years or even decades earlier. So we get into that. We also get into, the general DC cinematic universe and what is happening over there, which is also a kind of current story with the cancellation of Batgirl and, a lot of things up in the air. So current episode, very topical. Let's start talking to Chris Wozniak.
Chris Wozniak with us. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here.
So to kick things off, I have to ask, how did you discover comics?
Those go back to my earliest memories. Reading, the funny papers. First of all, that's where everybody gets hooked. From of my generation anyway. But my first comic books were Archie, Beetle Bailey, some of the Charlton stuff, Richie Rich and stuff like that. But Archie was the first one that I read regular. Before moving on to superheroes. Yeah.
Now, do you still have any original stuff that you collected?
I don't have any original stuff because in 2011 I was hit by a tornado. I don't know if you know that, but
Okay.
it was a Category 5 tornado, so the whole neighborhood disappeared with my comics and toys and Walt Simonson sketches and everything else. Yeah.
Damn.
Well, better to lose that than other things, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what I've read, you basically got into comics like right out of high school. Is that correct?
Not really. I was like 21 or 22 by the time I actually, at high school, I started doing assistant work and, backgrounds and stuff that were published in Marvel Comics. And, but, I didn't do my own first thing for DC. I think would be like 86. It was I think the Justice League cover over Luke McDonnell. And I think that's 86.
Got it. And then you started working from there though, pretty regularly with DC.
Yeah. I started doing a little inking, and then I got into penciling pretty quick. It was just a couple of months, and from there, for the most part, I penciled.
What would you say? What was some of your early work? What were some of your favorites that you remember?
The first thing I ever did was there were some Spirit issues. Actually, the very first thing I did was I was supposed to pencil the Creeper miniseries, and we did like an issue of that. That was something that had been getting kicked around for a few years, and they let me have a go at it. But then the whole thing got canned for another 10 years or something. But that was the first thing I did. I think of it maybe an issue and a half of a couple of Creeper books.
Cool. So one thing I have to ask about, because I love them, are Who's Who. I think they're great. And other than this beast of a book, I'm still on a hunt to try to get as many of them as I possibly can. Because they're just, I don't know, I always find those things just so fun because they're just easy. Even my 6-year-old son will flip through them and just study the art and the characters, many of whom just don't exist anymore because they're just so ridiculous and inappropriate. But how did you get involved on the Who's Who? Because you've done a number of different types of them.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly which ones I did, but I inked a few and penciled a few. When they started that project, it was it was a new thing, and basically they needed just a lot of guys, a lot of hands to fill out those books. So that was one of those things. If you were a new guy looking for work, that was a good deal because it's just a page here and there, but you get it and turn it in, hopefully get something else, and you go like that. So for somebody who is like new and hanging around the office and trying to pick up background stories and stuff like that, that was a good deal for everybody that was kind of looking for that stuff. Yeah.
You came up as an inker, or you were introduced as an inker and then moved to pencils.
Yeah, I started inking. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how they let me pencil. That was because usually that's a step. If you're an inker and then to jump to penciling, but it was just one of those things where they were going to cancel a book. It was The Spirit, and the writer, they didn't hit that threshold. Back in those days, the threshold was 60,000. If you weren't selling 60,000, then your book got canned. So they were about to cancel that title, and Dick Giordano was there in the office. Andy Helfer was the editor, and so they were going to cut it off. And Andy was explaining to Dick that the writer, I think it was Doug Mensch was doing that. He was enjoying working on the book, and he liked doing it. He wanted to do more, and so Dick just turned to me and said, "Okay, let him draw it," and that was it. And I got my first gig. I did, I don't know, 6 issues or 8 issues, whatever it was. Yeah.
And then you continued on in very various titles and covers and interiors and whatnot.
Some covers, interiors, inventory stories, just picking up whatever you can get, in those days. Yeah.
So coming from inking into penciling, and then you had your other people inking your pencils. Were you sort
I hated it. Yeah.
Were you critical of it?
Yeah, I couldn't stand it. I was really upset, because I didn't know any better, and I just, I don't want to throw anybody under a bus at this point because I was terrible in those days. I was just trying to figure it out. But I was into all the clean guys like the Terry Austins, and DC had a lot of guys like that. Bruce Patterson had jumped from lettering to inking, I think, and he had that kind of clean style and guys like that. Because when I did all my inking samples to get work, I would always ink over guys that were very clean, like Joe Staten, Garcia Lopez, stuff like that. And so that's the kind of thing I like. And then when I got my first like regular few issues, they gave Ricardo Villagran. They put him over me, and he was kind of more of a old school kind of textural kind of inker and stuff, and I didn't like it. Yeah, so, but you can't complain. You got to do what you got to do.
So in obviously doing our homework for you and reading over and checking out the work you've done, I've always admired Star Trek and kind of the work done on that. Now, as an artist, you're working on certain titles like Spectre. That's a dark character. Mm-hmm. Star Trek is a little bit more, dare I say, offend some fans with this one, but it's more uptight, I would say, as pertains to fandom. How as an artist, how do you approach that? Like, how do you want to, impart your style or, handle the artwork that is Star Trek?
Well, when you do something like a licensing book, that in and of itself is a whole issue because you're dealing with known actors, and you got to hit those likenesses and stuff like that. So before they'll tell you, okay, I want you to do some work on Star Trek, but before that gets greenlit, you have to get approved by Paramount, and they have their people over there, and they look and they go, okay, you can use him, and then you go from there. And so I did a few Star Trek things. I did some things kind of very rough and fast, and and then some things I did very clean. I did a couple of Star Treks with Claremont, and I think we had Jerome Moore inking, who was very clean. So it was, but then there was some Sienkiewicz things and stuff. It was a little all over the place because it wasn't a run. It wasn't like regular issues of Star Trek. I just did here and there. I would just pick up work out of the Star Trek office.
Did you enjoy doing that work?
Yeah, I'm a huge Star Trek guy.
Oh, okay.
It's not a popular thing to say, but I'm not into Star Wars much. I'm a Trek guy through and through. Especially the old series, and in those days they had just we started doing Next Generation and stuff like that. So there was the added, to be able to work on the show that was on the air then. So
the fans are nicer too.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of fans like to fight.
Well, I mean, look, I love Star Wars, but I always I like Star Trek. I'm not as into it, but it's always one of those things that I always respected, and I always enjoyed. It was one of the things I watched as a kid with my father. But Star Wars fans are the worst, and Star Trek fans love or hate the episode or whatever. They just seem to roll with it, and they're like, well, that's cool.
But Star Trek, I didn't, I when I was a kid, I'm trying to think how old Star Wars is what, 77 first one?
Yeah.
So that makes me 13. I didn't get to see it. I missed it in the theater, and everybody else saw it. And, but I grew up with Star Trek because, I grew up in Manhattan. So we had, Channel 11 had Star Trek reruns daily,
yes.
And sometimes twice daily. I think for a little while it was on at 6 o'clock and at 11 o'clock. So I grew up with that. My earliest memories are watching Star Trek.
Important question: which do you prefer?
The original series. Yeah. However, the remastered ones, though, just to specify, I love the when they went back in and fix all the special effects and everything. I think those are the best.
I wasn't even aware they did that.
Oh boy, you're missing it.
Really?
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, they went through and they fixed a lot of stuff where because in the original show they had a lot of budgetary constraints, and sometimes they would fire photon torpedoes, and there would be phasers or something. So stuff like that all got corrected in the remastered versions. I think they're great.
Oh, so they did a Star Wars to it.
Yeah, well, no, they did it better because the remastered Star Wars things, I didn't care for either.
Fair enough.
Did Han shoot first in the Star Trek?
Yeah, no,
Kirk did it.
Kirk always shot first.
Yeah.
So another property you worked on, kind of in the thick of its popularity, was the X-Men, specifically Excalibur.
Yeah, I did a little bit in the X office there.
Yeah. What was it like working on probably the most popular characters at the most popular time?
That was not my best experience in comics. I mean, I love Claremont. He's a very nice guy. He's one of my favorite writers. But at the time, I was still kind of I hadn't done a regular series or anything yet. I did lots of inventory stuff. And I think I had just finished a Hawk and Dove issue that Carl Kiesel inked. And, off of that, I got to move into the Marvel office. But, they told me on my first issue I would have 3 months to draw it. And, second issue, I'd have 2 months. And, they were, they set up, because I was a new penciler, essentially. They padded the schedule for me to let me break in. But Claremont just ate the whole thing straight off. I had 3 weeks to do the first book. I think 2.5 weeks to do the second one. It was hard for me to draw any kind of comic book that fast. I think the very last issue of Excalibur I did in 5 days, and that is not something you want me to do. Kyle Baker can do that, but I just can't. So I did the best I could. Yeah, I mean,
Too many others could do that.
I could do something. I could put something on the page. That's not the kind of schedule I need to be on now.
Sticking with the teen books, you also worked on JLA.
A little bit, yeah. That was, believe it or not, that was not something I asked for. It was summer, and they just had no one to do it. They couldn't get anybody. They asked me to do, a few issues, and I, actually wasn't even. I just left my bud. I didn't. I wanted to. I was looking to take that summer off, but Andy was like, "Look, do me a favor, just do the issues and stuff like that." So that was, I think I did 3 or 4 issues or something, but I was trying to draw them, in the Hamptons, sitting by the pool, kind of thing, and literally, I was trying to knock out pages like that. It was, it's just hard to get those out, but and I even asked to get off. I did 1 or 2, and I was like, "Look, I don't have time. Can you, and he was like, "Come on, just do 2 more or something." So I did them, but that was weird because Justice League is a book we would love to get on, if you could do it kind of regular. But the way that worked, everything is scheduling. When people are involved, and they have lives, and the office has deadlines, and you gotta mix and match those things and try to make them work out. But it was fun times. I mean, they had great covers by Adam. He did a couple of covers, and he's awesome. So yeah, I mean, in those days, if you got to draw a major character, even that was a big deal for you. Like in any capacity, if you got to draw Superman, even if he was just in the scene, you're like, "Well, I drew Superman in a comic book," so a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, as an artist, I mean, to focus on one character, that's daunting, as it is. But to have to balance, especially in the JLA, the heavy hitters, or any more than one character of that caliber, that must be quite a task to.
Yeah, that's another thing to do. Drawing a team book is a whole other world. Then that's another level of anybody that you've ever met that has drawn a regular monthly title of a team book, deserve your respect, because that's a ton of work, And it's one thing, to draw Daredevil and to, be able to work with like shadows and everything in one character. But, drawing a team book is, it's a lot of referencing and, it's more complex, compositions and all that stuff. So it's a lot more work.
So Chris, a lot of people have heard your name recently in relation to a bit of controversy owing to the recent The Batman movie and a story that you wrote many moons ago that may have influenced / more than influenced it. Let's rewind all the way to the beginning. At least the beginning as it relates to this, which is this story. Now you're primarily known as an artist, but you did do some writing. Tell us about this particular story you wrote. What were you working on at the time? How did you come up with it? What was it about?
Well, I wrote it. This, we are right around 1989, 1990. And I was actually looking to get away from penciling altogether and get into work on the writing side of it. But that's a tough jump to make. If they know you as a penciler, it's hard to get writing work, and you have to, break through that somehow. But Archie had just taken over the Batman office. He came over from Marvel, Archie Goodwin, and he didn't know me. So I thought, well, he's taken over the Batman office, and Batman is a character that everybody wants to work on, especially when you're talking right after the Keaton film, Batman Fever, and everybody and their mom, wanted to, get something going in the Batman office. So Archie didn't know me, so I thought, I'll submit a story. I went home and I wrote a story. I took like 10 days to do the whole plot, soup to nuts, and I brought it into him and dropped it off. And the story I wrote, I keep on, I'm like 26 years old or something. I thought I had just written the best Batman story ever. I was so proud of it. I made copies and gave it to all my Batman friends and stuff like that. So, I just thought like, this is really going to be a good big story. And I brought it to Archie and I gave it to him. And, in those days you could, just walk around the office and hand out samples or scripts or whatever it is you were working on. And, and I left it with Archie. And, over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, I had to pester him every time I came by the office. Hey, did you get to read that yet? No, I didn't read it. And then I'd say, oh, it's good. Try to get to it. Come back, 4 days later and bother him again. So after 2 or 3 weeks, I was in the office across from him. He had a corner office, and he came over and asked me if I actually had written the story. And I was like, yeah, I wrote that story. And he's like, well, did you write that by yourself? It's your story? And I was like, yeah, I wrote that story. And he told me, he thought it was great. And he was really surprised that I wrote it. I don't know what that's a backhanded compliment or something. But he said the story's too big. It's a great story, but Paul and Jeanette they'll never let you do that story. And he mentioned that if you were Frank Miller, we'd let you do it tomorrow. But it was like too big. And if you see the plot now, you see what he's talking about. But it's pretty epic, tale. So that's the initial genesis of that is just Archie was there. Archie didn't know me, and I wanted to get my foot in the Batman office.
So it's about, the main protagonist or antagonist is the Riddler.
Is the Riddler?
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us just summarize what you were trying, if you can put yourself back in 26-year-old you and, ignore sort of recent events, which we will get to.
Okay.
Why this story? Why the Riddler? Why so dark? Is it, coming off the 89 Keaton Batman and the Frank Miller stuff?
Yeah, there's a very specific reason for that. If anybody that's my age will remember, those joke books, 1001 Jokes, or those things that people, they would be on the bargain table at Barnes and Noble and stuff. People give them out as like cheap gifts and stuff like that. I was flipping through one of those books, and just filled with bad jokes and everything. But there was a riddle in there, and I read it and everything. And it was just an observation. I noticed that you write a riddle, by writing the answer first, and then you write the question to it, and they're super easy to do. And they're not complicated at all. I just happened to notice that. And then I thought, wow, I could write a really killer Riddler story. And, that's what I did. Like when I write a story, I generally start with what I call the oh shit moment. It's the real hook that, like in the film. And so that's what I did. The first thing I wrote was, I know you are Wayne. And that was the answer to that riddle, then, to reveal that the Riddler knows who Batman is. And then going backwards from that, I just wrote a bunch of answers that, when all combined would spell out, I know you're Wayne. And then after that was done, I just wrote some stupid riddles to go to those answers. And I had a story, I fleshed it out more than that, but, I worked on it for, I think, 10 days. And, but I did nothing else. I was really, I thought it was on to a good story. And so, I didn't do anything else until I had it finished,
So fast forward, and Joe, let me know. Hopefully I'm not stepping on your toes.
Nope.
So fast forward many years. I'm trying to do the calculus in my head. 30 years.
It's a lot. Yeah.
30 years later.
You had the long flowing locks
right.
back then.
I did. Yes.
Yes.
The young Adonis.
We did too at some point, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. If you can believe
Mike
it.
had long, really long hair. I had
Steven Seagal type ponytail. So 30 years later, we are now in the, let's see, second or maybe even third, depending on if you count Affleck, even though he didn't have a movie, Batman rejuvenation, revamp, whatever you want to call it. And now they added the Batman, because it makes it more serious. The Batman with Robert Pattinson, yada, 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 comes out with a big teaser trailer, very dark.
I didn't see that, though.
What's that?
I don't watch, like in superhero movies, I know I'm going to watch the movie. So I try to avoid even seeing the
So you
trailer.
don't even, okay. So
I
you
don't like
even watch it.
spoilers.
Okay.
I hate spoilers. So if I know I'm going to watch it, I literally won't even look at a commercial for it. You know, I want to see it as cold as possible. You know?
So you didn't even see that, but from a
then you saw
other
Suicide
type of
Squad, and you're like, oh
perspective.
crap.
I didn't see that one.
And
See?
was,
Yeah, there you go. Good.
Actually, I might own it on Blu-ray. I think I did buy it, but didn't watch it. You know, so I haven't gotten it to it yet.
Fair enough.
Well, what struck me about the teaser was the dark tone, the Nirvana song theme, and I was like, oh, this looks dark and serious. And I was sort of taken aback that the Riddler was going to be a primary villain, because Riddler had, up until that point, at least in film, had been portrayed not very dark. Certainly, I mean,
not in comics either, because my story was written, like I said, in 1990, and as far as I know, that was the very first treatment of the Riddler like that ever. You know, certainly as a mass murderer and a serial killer, there was no Riddler in 1990 that did any of that. But yeah, I mean, but the other thing I should mention is that I wrote this story to be a sequel to Dark Knight. So, that's why it's an older Batman, and that's why it's so dark, because, I thought, okay, we better step it up if we want to get this, story out. And I have a tendency to write those kind of stories anyway. If you leave me alone, I will probably write a dark thriller, or I'll just write straight comedy. I don't care for things in the middle. I want that hardcore adventure, or that hardcore horror, or that really, really, really funny thing. Anything that's kind of in the middle is, less interesting for me. Yeah,
I totally get that. I'm kind of the same way. So you skip the trailers. You want the theatrical experience to remain clean. You sit down in your seat, getting ready for the new Batman film.
I didn't even get that far because, because I live in a small town. I mean, we've got one small movie theater, and it only played here for a week, if that. So I missed it. Wow. And so, and I wasn't, overly upset about that, because, I knew who was cast, and I didn't seem to care for the casting. I could always be wrong, but Patterson off the Twilight stuff, movies I never saw and probably would never want to see. So I just wasn't crazy. It didn't sound right for me, like the right kind of Batman thing. So it was just on HBO, and I hadn't even queued it up. It had only been on maybe 2 or 3 days at that point. But I happened to be talking to Chris Bautista, and he mentioned to me like how we started chatting about the movie. Asked if I had seen it. I said no, and he told me I should, because he thought it was the most Neil Adams like portrayal of Batman, and that made me interested. So I was like, you know what, I'll watch it tonight. And that's how I saw it. I was sitting on my sofa, 10 feet from here, watching it on HBO. That was my first exposure to it, which.
And 3 hours later,
I didn't get that far.
Were you like jumping out of your?
You're like, what?
I was losing my shit with the Paul Dano scene where he calls him Bruce Wayne, because that's essentially it's the exact scene that's from my movie, and they get there the same way, and it's the same reveal. It's soup to nuts, my story. So I'm watching that, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So I paused the movie, and I called Batista back, and I was like, dude, did Michael Uslan produce this movie? And he mistakenly said no. He's like, I don't think he has anything to do with them anymore. And I was like, because this is the story that I gave to Michael Uslan. This is like an awful lot like the story I gave to him. We just did the big reveal and everything. It's all the same. And he was like, really? And I was like, and so I went back to the movie, and I kept watching, and and everything does play out the same as the plot that I submitted. But by the time we get to the very end, and they bring in the mysterious Joker, who is who hasn't been seen throughout the whole movie, just like in my story, and then appears at the very end. And then we find out he was kind of the mastermind behind it. in the movie, you have to go through the Easter egg to see it on, when the cipher solves for a J, and that's a giveaway that the Joker was behind it. But yeah, I was losing my shit by the time the Joker appeared. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, this is just my whole story, soup to nuts. And so, yeah, I didn't call Batista back, but I tried to get on Facebook and, asked Michael Uslan what was going on, and I had been unfriended. And so that didn't give me a good feeling. And I called Batista back and, screamed and yelled. And, the next morning I started putting the video together.
So how do you think it was, you got, make sure I phrase this correctly. How do you think it got from your initial submission to, I mean, I know how the movie got on the screen, but, do you think it was just, someone along the way had your...
No, I met Michael Uslan in 2008 at a New York Comic Con, and he gave me his card regarding another comic that I published. It was called Barren Soil. I had a booth with a big banner, and he liked the title of it. He approached me, said, I like the title of your book. I'm always looking for good stories. You mind if I have a free copy? And of course I gave him one. I didn't know who he was, but he did say he was a film producer. He told me, he said his name and everything, but I didn't get it. I didn't make the connection. So of course I gave him one, and he had, a small stack of other books that he was carrying on. So apparently he had done that with a number of people. But I went home and I Googled his name, and I saw he was the, producer of the Batman films. And I had this killer Batman story that we had never got to use. I still thought it was a great story. Even after I got hit by a tornado, well, that was actually after. Wait, what year is that? That's after this one. But, I just had a great Batman story. So of course I sent it to him. I was like, this is, a story we never got around to doing at DC Comics, but it would make a fantastic Batman film, and I never heard from him. That was it. I sent it out. I didn't hear back. And then it wasn't until the movie that, that's how I found out, just watching the film on HBO.
And what is, beyond your initial, contact that you described, what has been the communication between yourself and others along the DC or the production route have been? You mean the provenance of the story and No, I mean, just in terms of your battle net at this point. I mean, going forward, have you, obviously you are, I would assume, obviously you're trying to get in touch with the right people to figure out what the hell,
Yeah, but I mean, when I made the first video, I predicted that they would just go dark, because this is what they always do, when this kind of thing happens. If, because, we are talking about, multi-billion-dollar film studios, mega millionaire directors and producers and stuff like that. And so, when this type of thing happens, they know that nobody could really afford to come after them. And even if you can raise the money to sue them, they'll kick it down the road until you grow old or, get hit by a bus or whatever. And so, that's what they always do, is they just wait to see if, A, you get any traction with your story, and B, if you, can actually raise the money to sue or something like that, then, then that's okay. They just tie you up in court and bleed you with legal fees. I mean, that's the usual thing. So it was very predictable, and that's what's going on now. I would murder to see somebody, ask Uslan or Reeves about Batman Gate, on camera to see what response they have,
Do you think the current, changing climate, I guess it's Warner Brothers Discovery or whatever, they're called at this point. Do you think that's mucking up the works a bit? Because, or maybe, it's a matter of strike while the iron is hot, because they have quite a number of things against them right now. Whether it's Ezra Miller or they're canceling a bunch of,
there's a lot going on.
Beloved fan films and properties. They're just crossing shit off. And I think they're going to come to a point where they want to appease the, people, fans and, everyone else.
That's all true, but from my perspective, I was unaware until literally maybe this week even, that there was a whole battle, there were factions of Snyder people, versus I guess Reeves people and everything. And I didn't even know that was going. I don't pay too much attention to that type of thing. Like if a new Batman movie comes out, I'll just watch a new Batman movie. I don't get into Warner Brother politics or anything. So I really had no idea that there was that much people that were entrenched in their camps, and also that in Warner Brothers itself was going through that much restructuring and shaking up and everything like that. So I just found out also about, I didn't realize that like they had brought in a new head, this Zaslav guy, and but clearly he's got ideas about what how they're going to go forward and what they're going to do with this. And I think just judging from what he said, that he's leaning towards going with the whole Affleck, and Gal Gadot and Henry as Superman, and bringing back the Trinity that they can build on and build a cohesive. He said as much. They want a Disney type cohesive universe, and they can't do that with the Pattinson thing. It's not, and I think Matt Reeves had a great idea to go. A lot of people don't get this, but I like the movie. I actually do like it. I think Matt Reeves did a killer job with the script and directing the movie. I'm happy with the cast. That I doubted all of them initially, but I thought they did a good job. And I see where he's going with it. Like to his sequel. Pattinson behind the mask I thought was great. I thought he was one of the best, like acting behind the mask. And a lot of people, dislike his Bruce Wayne and everything, but I think Matt Reeves, what he's going for there is that like that's not really Bruce Wayne yet. They haven't cooked up Bruce Wayne. That's like he hasn't been created yet. And I think that's an interesting way to come at it. But is that even going to happen now? Because I just don't see David Zaslav allowing two Batmans to go forward at once. It doesn't seem to be his vision of the DC movieverse. And if you're going to choose, Affleck's already connected with the Trinity. They have some traction there. It's and I could just see, and I think that would work. If they just, I think the right move would be to start with a new Superman movie that maybe is not quite as dark, as a little more hopeful, more in line with the Reeves type thing, and then build on that, before jumping into Justice League stuff. And I think it would absolutely work. Because as it is now, they're just the projects they don't seem connected at all. Whatever the Batman thing that got canceled didn't seem to really connect with anything. Yeah. And he seems to want to specifically do that cohesive universe that Disney did, which is what they should have did. That they should have done that in the first place. I mean, I think everybody realizes that it was a weird decision not to make that commitment when Marvel and Disney and Marvel were just killing it, movie after movie. Yeah. And then Warner Brothers' response to that was they put out the Wonder Woman show. Remember that canceled TV show? It was an abomination. That was their response, though. As soon as they did that, I knew right away that they were just from the top down. Leadership was not gonna make this fly. But and then they tried trying to catch up to Marvel. I think they jumped into the Justice League movie too quick. Yeah. And those are my thoughts on it. But going forward, like with all the shakeup that's going now and entrenchment with the camps and everything, and the fact that Matt Reeves, the way he's doing his Batman is not really connected with the rest of the DC universe. And now with this, I'm not saying that Batman Gate scandal is gonna derail a whole $750 million sequel or anything, but I don't think it's helping. Clearly, that this is everything that's going on is not looking good. So I mean, we might not see any more Matt Reeves Batman films. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
I don't know. Look, I'm a DC guy. If you haven't noticed all the stuff behind me, so I absolutely adore them. But you can't deny the fact that Marvel is killing it. They decided, okay, let's make one good movie to start, and let's see what happens. And they took the ballsy move of throwing in, Samuel L. Jackson at the end, saying, let's to talk about, the Avengers Initiative, and everyone just lost their mind. So you knew, like, all right, let's just, for shits and giggles, let's see if this sticks. And it did, obviously, and they had a long-term plan. But, like, I think right now they have so many stops and starts, and we're not going to do this. No, we are, but we also have this, and we have this dark Batman, but then we also have super dark Joker over here too. And
I think that's why David Zaslav is cleaning house. I think he wants to clear the slate and have a plan, and and if he puts the right guy in charge of it, I think it would work. I think it's the right idea, even if they are a little late, to the party. I still think it's the right move. I think it would. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to see those characters thrive on screen? And when they had when Gal first appeared as Wonder Woman in that scene, with Batman and Superman, and when the first time you saw the three of them on screen, she comes in and she's kicking ass. That is everything we've always wanted. That was so spectacular. And we know that it works. We know that everybody wants it. We just have to have it delivered. And it just takes a guy with vision. When like I said, I think and obviously Zack Snyder's a super talented guy, and but I thought the Superman was a little too dark, for Superman. But if you bring in, and I don't want to take credit for this suggestion, but the guy that directed the Captain America movie, who understands that tone, I think if we get a Superman movie like that to reboot, soft reboot of the DC movieverse, I think that's would be very optimistic for everyone.
Why do you think it is that they keep, and this is probably more DC than anything else, but they keep trying to really go out, think outside the box as it pertains to a lot of the familiar characters. Certainly with Superman, probably not so much with Wonder Woman, but definitely with Batman. Let's go super dark. I get Batman's a dark character, but at the same time, it's, there was a distinction between Batman and Bruce Wayne. And, Bruce Wayne is, he would smile, and he would, the tone of his voice literally changed, as it pertains to film, at least, when, he talks to people as Bruce Wayne. He has the utmost affection for Alfred. In this movie, he, is a dick to Alfred. Why do you think they're just, like, you have these beloved characters, there are certain traits and characteristics that are, that are identifiable to these characters to the core. But it seems like they really want to shake the shit out of them and let's really do something totally different.
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake, because it's not what, we've got, how many years now of Superman, what is it, 80, 90, I don't even know where we are now. But, these guys have a long history, and we all have a mental concept of who these characters are. And, and I think, to go whole hog, and go straight into all that dark stuff and everything, I think is just Warner Brothers trying to play catch up with DC's, with the Marvel film success, and going straight for the big stories right away. Superman fights Batman, the Justice League, and everything. And I just think that was a mistake. And it's probably driven, by money, and the need to, have those big blockbusters right away. But I think they should have started like with, Marvel started with Iron Man. It wasn't even, Iron Man was a B character, and always had been, until that movie, and so, but they built up to the Avengers movie. They didn't just jump right into it. And I think the Warner Brothers, so far, what they did was I think they rushed to the Dark Side. We should be seeing that 4 movies from now. And so I just think they forced it a little bit, and you can feel it. And I don't think they're bad movies. I'm not saying that. Because the director's cut of Snyder's Batman versus Superman, I thought was a better movie. I thought it held together better, and it just functioned as a better film. It didn't feel as choppy as the theatrical cut. But you have to plan it. You can't just go, oh, we'll just do this and that. You have to have with the Marvel stuff, they had every single movie interacted with the other.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they went from a darker movie to a lighter movie, or everything was interconnected. Mm-hmm. And that's Marvel Comics. That's when Stan was doing it in his time. That's how all that stuff was put together. Everything overlapped. There was a universe and everything, and that's what made the rising tide floats all the boats and everything. So we have we don't have that in the DC universe. With the films and everything. We just where are all the supporting films before we get to this big Justice League movie? I think we just needed to lay that foundation more, before we went there. But I think everybody wants to see a great DC universe on film, a cohesive, I think we would kill for it. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I just want to see my Superman smile again.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, with the exception of the new Superman Lois show, which I haven't really watched too much of, every version of Superman that's been on lately, Smallville, and certainly, Henry Cavill's version. I mean, Jesus Christ, the most morose, emo Superman. I mean, Brandon Routh too. I mean, good Lord, man. Smile, you're Superman, dude. I
think absolutely that the best foot forward to soft boot the new DC universe there. It has to be a Superman movie, and it has to be something with a lighter tone that is a little more optimistic for everything to come. I think that has to be your first foot forward. And I think that Captain America derived, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, I forget. But the guy, right, he gets that tone. I mean, Captain America, that film was Captain America. He, it had, the patriotism, it had, the aw shucks kind of humor in it. He really got the tone of it. And I think that was missing from, Superman.
I think he did The Rocketeer too. So he has that kind of,
sensibility. Yeah, he'd be great to do Superman. Yeah.
I think at one point, Warner Brothers, I think kind of gave up on the cohesive universe after, Justice League. And they're just I think they kind of just threw their arms up and said, we'll be the anti-Marvel. We'll just kind of have different versions of our characters. Sometimes they'll cross over here. Sometimes they won't there. And until Zaslav, I guess, came on and showed that he's willing to torpedo a $90 million Batgirl movie and slash and burn stuff, then
shocking.
Yeah, then I think you're probably right. I mean, if he did that, he's probably willing to clean the slate and start over.
And what else could you do? I mean, I think you have to, and I think also, and I don't want to hang the blame on Zack Snyder because, for what he did, with the tone being a little too dark and everything, because I think honestly that a lot of this is driven by Warner Brothers' just lack of support, coming from the office. I mean, I think all the comic book people understand who these characters are. I don't think Warner Brothers does, to respond with, the DC, the Marvel and Disney movieverse with that Wonder Woman film show, the shit show that they put on that didn't even get past the pilot. That is just a drop dead clear example that they don't care, they don't know the characters, they don't, they're just not interested. They're just like, oh, if it makes money, good for us. But I don't think they're invested at all. And I think now with them, with Zaslav's, setting aside, hey, we're going to have a DC branch of Warner Brothers to make films. I think he's the only person that is really taking this seriously and wants to right the ship. So I think he's an executive. I don't know how much he knows about is he a comic book guy to his core? I don't know anything about that with him personally, but he has to bring someone in that does know comic books. It has to be whoever comes in to, structurally bring about all the films. It's got to be, they need a point man.
Mhm.
And that guy has to know comics, he's got to know these characters inside out, because otherwise you're rudderless, you're just making movies, you need that big plan, but it has to be a comic book guy who lives and breathes comics and knows these characters, and you have to let that guy be point man and leave him alone. That's the other thing. You got to have faith in that guy, whoever he's going to be.
I think Jeff Johns was meant to be that guy until there was issues behind the scenes with whatever during the Snyder, and actually not Snyder, but when
Green Lantern. Wasn't that?
No, it was what's his name, when the guy who did Joss Whedon, when he came in, him and
Right.
Jeff Johns, I guess they were the two. They had issues with other people during the making of that movie, but I mean, they could. Of course, now God knows what's going to happen. Easily corrected this.
I was so excited for a Green Lantern movie when they announced it.
Dude.
Because I thought that was just the right move. It's like, okay, we're not going to start with our big guns. But Green Lantern done right would be fantastic. I mean, wow. Just thinking about it, and then what did we get? It looked like a bad video game, And so it was just really disappointing with the wrong villain, and so someone had the right idea, but along the way it wasn't executed at all.
They could have fixed it, I think, with the and this would be the last I say about this because I know I'm just fanboying out. With the Flash movie, they could have fixed it in continuity as it pertains to the movie if they did like a Flashpoint type of reset, and they kind of just changed the universe without really changing the universe. Like you have Superman, you have Henry Cavill, he's still Superman. You have, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman and Affleck as Batman. And, they're still their characters, but they're a little different because that's what those types of resets do. They change them a little bit, but they're still their main characters. But whatever.
Now we're also faced with the Ezra Miller optics nightmare.
I just want to see Keaton.
Yeah. But I think honestly, I don't think they can go forward. Keaton. Yeah. Well, I mean, who doesn't love Michael Keaton as Batman? How shocking was that? That was good.
Yeah. And now
the news before Keaton made the movie was that before that it was who was attached to it was Bill Murray, and they were talking about doing a completely goofy Batman movie, and so and that didn't happen when they announced Michael Keaton was going to be Batman. You just thought that's what you were going to get. Okay, we couldn't get Bill Murray, so we got Michael Keaton, and it was going to be, I don't know, Mr. Mom as Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't at all. I mean, that first movie, he was awesome. But with Ezra Miller, there's a very serious problem here. The guy's relentlessly in trouble, out, with law enforcement and all this stuff. And I think it's hard for them to release the movie as a good. I hope it's a good movie, right? We don't know yet if the movie's good or not. But if it is good, and they have it in the can, I think the right move would be to recast the character with a new actor that kind of looks like Ezra Miller, and just CGI his face over Ezra Miller in this flick, and that would be probably the cheapest way to go forward. And I
Grant
think
Gustin, the guy from the TV show. I mean, he is awesome.
And then they could move on that's if the movie's good. We don't know.
Although they tried to remove Henry Cavill's mustache in the reshoots for Justice League, and that didn't go so well.
I mean, you would think it would be easier just to put on the fake mustache for the movie or something. The other project that he's doing, but that was weird.
Mission Impossible. That was what he was doing. He couldn't take off. He couldn't put on a fake mustache.
Yeah, because he's not in that much. I mean, he's just
just had Superman with a mustache
with a fake mustache on.
How hard is it to do the fake mustache?
Yeah. It looked like a fake mustache to begin with. Anyway, sorry.
Well, Chris, I hope you don't mind if we rewind back to the actual issue. I did have a couple other questions. I wanted to know how, since you put out the video and since you made this, made this all sort of public, what has the reaction been from fans, other creators, what have you?
Well, this weekend, the story really started to get traction. It's been like a month and a half since I think first put up the first video, maybe. I don't know if it's been that long, whatever it's been. Like the first video is, it's a lot to absorb and everything. And the second video is a lot more, absorbable. It's when, it's an easy thing to take in, and then to go back and then watch the first video, and then you get a much more comprehensive, picture of what's going on. But, I think, like just this weekend, it really started to catch on, but that also meant a lot of trolls are showing up all over the place. We were all kinds of crazy theories that I just wrote it, after the movie, and the world of conspiracy nuts have jumped out, but I don't care, because at the end of the day, they're just bringing more attention to it too. But, some of the things that are being said are just like, I've already covered that in the video, so you got to just watch them. They don't seem to be interested. So there's a whole camp, accusing me of being some kind of Snyder. I don't know, this or that. You can't, people that are that, fixed in their opinions, you can't say anything. You can't get them to pay attention to the video. You can't tell them, hey, I actually like the movie. I just have an issue that they used my story and didn't pay me. You can't say those things, but because they're not listening. But what are you gonna do? You expect that when something. Obviously, this is a, it's not easy to say that to anybody. Hey, they used my story. But I think I've clearly proven that they did. Especially with those rewrites and the character composites and everything. So I think, it's one of those things where even if you can prove it, they don't want to hear it, and they don't want to know about it. And, and then the personal attacks start and everything. But, like I said, I half expected that. But there's, some press coming on. I think we've had someone from Forbes is tweeting about it. There's one of the biggest newspapers in the country is working the story. They talked to me. So, there's, the story's breaking past where it is now. And hopefully, we'll get more attention to it. And but this is also besides myself, and obviously what I'm looking for is I expect to be, these guys use my story. I expect to be paid and credited. I'm not just going to walk away and go, oh, well, just go make $770 million with my story and then leave me out of it. That's not going to happen. So, but I'm just looking for, fair credit, fair compensation, just like the other two writers got on the film, they didn't have to go online and make a stink, to be recognized for their contribution. So, and that's all I'm looking for, but, it's one of those things where, you gotta go public and make it known, because the thing is, everybody knows this is not my story. This is a common thing that happens to a lot of guys, Hollywood pilfering from, working class guys in comics. They do this all the time, and it just needs to stop. It's like there's no excuse for this. These guys have tons and tons of money. We're talking about a film that had a $200 million budget. Why are you ripping people off? It's ridiculous.
Why do you think that is? I mean,
now
more than ever, there are more eyes on these movies. Fans, even non-fans of the comics.
Yeah.
The fans of the comics are going to be like, oh shit, that was from this. And, there are some who can literally, reference the exact issue and panel of something.
Yeah.
Ed Brubaker got, had some issues with, the Winter Soldier movie for not getting the credit he deserved for that. And rightly so.
Yeah, of course.
Why do you think they're even, pulling this off? Because, like you said, they're making bazillions of dollars. And, I don't think, for the most part, these creators are asking for the world. They want what is owed to them, what is due.
Right.
They want the credit and, the compensation that they're due. I think they can swing it.
Yeah, clearly they have enough money, it's, I don't get it. Because we are talking about people, even on a personal level, that are tremendously wealthy, and that doesn't matter. There's budgets set aside for these movies. They're huge budgets, And it just has to be a matter of ego, where they just want the credit for themselves. They want, I got, what's the other reason? Because like if you're in, we're getting ready to make the new Batman movie, and we're in Michael Easton's office, and then we go, okay, well, this Riddler story is a story that we're going to do. He knows that's not his story to use. I mean, he has to know that bell has to go. Even if they had 30 stories lying around, when they settled on this one, he knows that's my outline, and that I didn't gift it to anybody. It's so he just made that call. He's like, oh, fuck it, we'll change it a little bit, and we'll just call it ours. And it's rough because I mean, there's a possibility that that my outline, my plot in some form, or maybe it had been worked on and then given to Reeves. I mean, that's a possibility that, that it was handed to Reeves and he told him, well, we have this, you could make this yours, go ahead. That's possible. And maybe Reeves didn't even know, but he is running around saying that, it's his story, whole cloth, that, it's not really based on any Batman comics, and he's doing lots of interviews. And we are talking about, all the allocates for the originality of reinventing the Riddler. And that shit is all out of my plot, And so it's and, I don't even care about that, but, it's like, when they're doing these, they're taking victory laps and then taking exotic vacations with my daughter's college fund. How am I supposed to stay home and be quiet?
Mm-hmm.
And so this happens to a whole bunch of guys. And so, I was like, fuck it, man. I'm going to call them out. What are you going to do? I'm not going to eat that. And a lot of people think that people that work in comics are, wealthy guys. They draw for Marvel or something. That's not the case at all. Most of there's very few Jim Lees and Rob Liefelds and guys that are making that killer living in the comic book medium. Most guys are trying to keep the lights on. That's just the truth. Even if they're drawing books for Marvel and DC, the vast majority of regular comic book artists are not, making any kind of killer livings or anything. Their spouses are, keeping them afloat, or they're moving into their parents' homes. It's like horror stories, because guys now, they don't even make what I made in the 80s. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The Marvel rates for inkers and stuff. It's literally, I got more in 88 than guys are getting today in 2022.
So before we go, I want to make sure that anyone listening or watching can, kind of do their part to either, help help the situation, help the cause, I guess. What can we do? Where can we go? Either online or,
Yeah, you start with the Batman Gate 2 video, and that will give you, in a nutshell, the big argument. And then, if you're still interested and you still think there's something to this, you could watch the first Batman Gate video and get a more comprehensive, account of everything. But, my goal, obviously, I would like to get credit. I would like to get paid. But, those are very obvious things. But, secondary to that is, I don't want this to happen anymore. This is nonsense. This is craziness. This is the information age, and this is still going on. I want these guys called out, and, because I can guarantee you, like, okay, maybe, Hollywood corruption, if that's what you want to call it, is just so, entrenched that maybe it's not going to go away. I guarantee you Matt Reeves is not going to steal another script, and Michael Easton is going to think twice before he does this. So, you got to call these guys out. You got to bring, because Matt Easton runs around, being the champion of comic creator rights. He's always giving Bill Finger credit, and rightly so, for everything he did with Batman. But, he's doing that publicly, and but Bill Finger's dead. You don't have to pay Bill Finger, and, and then behind the scenes, he's just knocking off my story and literally taking my name off it and putting someone else's on it. And, so, if you make it a big public stink, and, and let all the fans know, and share the story, and make sure that everybody knows what's going on, then, just because of the optics being so bad, then this will stop. But when you go along with it and you go, oh, I can't tell you how many guys have come to me and said, well, Mark, it's Hollywood. They always steal stories. Why? Why are you letting that happen? It's like, everybody's afraid to open their mouths when it happens to them, and everybody's got a story like this in comics, it seems. It's like, I can't tell you how many guys, contacted me literally about some of the people that we are discussing. But, say something, make us think, and even if I don't get paid, like I said, I guarantee you that these two guys won't do this again, so, there's that much gets done, so, make it known, if you got robbed by, Hollywood, call them out, I just don't know what else to say. It's not my mentality or my personality to let somebody rip me off like that and just eat it. I can never live with myself, just going along with that. So that's why we're here.
Where can fans follow you on social media, all that stuff? Batman Gate aside, we are here to discuss your career and how much we admire it. So that being said, I want to make sure that we kind of leave off on a more positive note for you. And where can people follow you on social media, see your work?
Okay, I am going to drop in just about a month. I've got a new graphic novel. It's called Penelope Powerhouse. It looks cute, but it's adult animation type stuff. It's it's gonna there's an Indiegogo campaign that's gonna launch in 3-4 weeks, and then that's the new project. And there's a YouTube teaser for it that I did initially. That this project actually got interrupted because I had made the video. I was going to do this new comic, and just based on the video, it had only been out for like a week or so, and it got some producer interest already just based on the video. So I was invited to write a pilot for it, which I did, and then, and it was, hoping to get that going, but then Netflix stock tanked whenever. It was a Netflix producer who has, I think 3 different animated shows that of. So that cooled off. And so, I had just gotten back to work on that when I watched Batman. And now, so here's that. So, but I am starting to get back to doing artwork on Penelope Powerhouse. That's going to drop next month.
Okay.
We'll look out for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Fun project.
I want to thank you again for joining us. This has been a really interesting interview for us. You
guys have a great guests. Simonson and Green Bob Burger.
Yeah, they've been, like I said, we talked to some, like you said, some great guests, but we were talking about them, about their career, more or less, in the past, I should say. But this is current. This is contemporary. Yeah. This is happening now. And it's extremely interesting. Not that any of the others weren't, but, this is stuff that will, however it ends up, playing out for all parties involved, it will certainly affect how things happen going forward.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger issue beyond me that, that this happens so much. And
it absolutely is.
And that I don't think the general public is aware of how often, this type of thing goes on, with Hollywood pilfering, particularly from the comic community,
Yeah, I think, certainly the general public doesn't. The comic book nerds like us, we know that it happens. It takes, it's more than, we have to just, instead of bitching about the color of a certain character's uniform on screen, we could use these powers of the computer for other things, for the forces of good, rather than complaining about Star Wars and all that other crap. So
I certainly appreciate it. So, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. It was nice of you guys to have me on.
No, we appreciate you coming on. And we are back. So, like we said, very current discussion. We don't do that too often. We're usually talking to artists and creators about their past experiences and their career back in the day. I love this discussion because we could have gone on all day, quite literally, and I think we were about to. A lot to discuss, and I'll be honest with you, I'd love to hear everyone's opinions, because this is an interesting topic. Artists are certainly they're due their share, as they say, but I really enjoyed talking to Chris. He had a lot to say, and has had a really interesting career despite all this going on.
Yeah, agreed, Joe. I thought it was a very interesting and nuanced discussion, if you will. And yeah, we leave it up to you. I mean, you can come to obviously different opinions as to, his claims. But I think we can all rally around, and a lot of what this show is about is rallying around creator rights. And certainly, whether it's this case or many others that we've heard of, the creators of these stories, of these characters, are just not given their due. Both in terms of respect, and in terms of compensation. And so, we'll continue to highlight these areas. We continue to highlight these creators, and we hope you'll continue to join us for these interviews. But that'll do it for this week of episodes of the Dollar Bin Bandits. Thank you, as always, for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.